Morning everyone. In this video we're going to start with paragraph 7.4 and we're going to talk about quadratic equations, and those are actually pretty hard, but if you did get the product sum method then this part will be a lot easier. To solve these we're going to look at something first which might not make sense at first, but after that hopefully it does. So we're going to look at this specific thing. If we have something, and we'll call that something A, and we're going to multiply that with something else, which we're going to call B for now. And the answer of this is 0. So something times 0, something is 0. Then you may think about these things as just numbers. So for example, if A is 5, 5 times something is 0. Then this has to be 0, because 5 times 0 is 0. Okay, but what if B is 4, for example? Then 0 times 4 is 0. So if this answer is 0, then at least one of these things has to be 0. So either A is equal to 0 or B is 0. One of these things has to be true. Does that make sense? Well, think about it. If you have an equation like, for example, 3x is 0, then 3 times something is 0, then x has to be 0, because 3 is never 0. Okay, and we're going to use this idea with quadratic equations. And now you're probably wondering, okay, then how? Imagine we have x plus 2 and x minus 3. Remember, in this form, in between these brackets, there's actually a times sign. So x plus 2 times x minus 3. And if you try to link to this thing, you can call this A, this B. What does that mean? It means that either this part is 0 or this part is 0. If x plus 2 is 0, then something plus 2 is 0, then x has to be minus 2. On the other hand, if x minus 3 is 0, then x is 3. Why are these answers correct? Well, let's try and fill in these answers and see what happens. Let's start with x if x equals minus 2. If x equals minus 2, and we're going to fill it in this equation, we'll get minus 2 plus 2 times minus 2 minus 3. Well, minus 2 plus 2 is 0 times minus 5 is 0. So if we fill in x equals minus 2, the answer is 0. So that's good. But what if x equals 3? Does the same thing happen? Well, the first pair of brackets will give us 5. Oh. So that's not very helpful, but the second pair of brackets gives us 3 minus 3, which is 5 times 0, which is also 0. So in these kind of things, there are usually two answers. So what does this have to do with the quadratic equations? Well, hopefully you remember the product sum method. Imagine we have x squared plus, minus x plus, not plus, come on Mitchell, minus 6 equals 0. And we want to find two numbers, we want to find numbers for which, if we fill them in, this makes sense. We would first use the product sum method, and the product sum method tells us that minus 1 is our sum, and minus 6 is our product. So the two numbers that we have to use are 2 times minus 3, which is minus 6, and 2 plus minus 3 is minus 1, so that fits. Which means that we can turn this formula into x plus 2 and x minus 3, which is still equal to 0. And then the same thing happens as we just saw. X plus 2 is equal to 0, or x minus 3 is equal to 0. So x equals minus 2 or 3. This is same thing that we saw over here. But if we take these answers and fill them into this equation, something which you might find interesting might happen. Let's start with 3 first. If x equals 3, then we have x squared becomes 3 squared minus 3 minus 6. Well, this is 9 minus 3 minus 6, which is 0. So if we fill in these two numbers, of one of these numbers, into this equation, the answer will be 0. Okay, I'm going to give you one to do for yourself, which will be x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. So what do we have to do? Maybe you can try it yourself and pause me, maybe you can just listen. If you already did it, the correct product sum method gives us 2 and 4. Why? Well, 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 plus 2 is 6. Then we have once again two parts. The first part and the second part. So this is your A and this is your B. So either x plus 4 is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. So x is equal to something plus 4 is 0, then that something has to be 4. Or something plus 2 is 0, then x has to be minus 2. And you can check these answers. If we fill in minus 4, then we have minus 4 squared. Remember, brackets around negative squares. Plus 6 times minus 4 plus 8. Well, this is 16. Minus 24 plus 8. Well, that makes sense. It's 0 again. Does this also work when we have the things from paragraph 2? Well, yes, it does. Because if we would have x squared plus 6x, for example, I told you, we can divide both of these things by x, so then you would have x in between brackets, x plus 6. X times x is x squared, x times 6 is 6x. Then we also have two parts. We have this first part and this second part. So then either x equals 0 or x plus 6 equals 0. So if x plus 6 equals 0, something plus 6 is 0, so something has to be minus 6. And we can check both of these answers. For example, if x equals 0, we have 0 squared plus 6 times 0, which is 0. And if we fill in minus 6, then we have minus 6 times, then we have minus 6 squared plus 6 times minus 6. This is 36 minus 36, which is also 0. This is one of the harder parts of this chapter, so hopefully you do get some of this. Good luck with the homework, and if you have questions, please let me know.